so many things. Transformations were going on. People left the communities surrounding Mount Vernon Avenue. You know, Poindexter was just one community. There was Bolivar Arms and other surrounding communities. And people would not stay in one area as they did in Poindexter. You see, people stayed until they could buy their own home. We stayed for 17 years until my parents could save and buy their own home. You would see people jumping around, and that's when these projects were called projects, because no one stayed. And the community was at lost. You see, you have to be there for a while to have a community. You can't just be jumping all around. You know, the grass is not greener over there. You know, it's pretty green right in your own backyard. At least that's how I feel from those experiences that I've been fortunate enough to experience.
So all of a sudden, when the urban renewal piece came through, they leveled this entire neighborhood and there was nothing. You could sit right here in this window and see the railroad tracks. You could stand on the railroad tracks and you could see, because this land is flat, you could see all the way to Mount Vernon Avenue, or the south side of Mount Vernon Avenue. You could stand here and see all the way to Trevitt, and it stayed that way for a decade. And so what you're suffering with really now is not so much that people have got less sensitive, less this and less that, is that it made theirs inconvenient to deal with. So now, the community would have been far worse if it had not been for intelligent people inside the community, not outside the community. Now the point is from the tear down to the last piece was 2 or 3 presidents. It's horrible. Now the fact is that the community's still here. You name me a community in Columbus that could have half of its business district and demolished, lay dormant for 10 years, and they would still call it anything. So, you know, you look at the neighborhood like something like, well, it went down. We look at it like it's a miracle that we're still here.
Really, there were two primary reasons that you saw the dismantling of all the great things you saw in the history regarding Mount Vernon and the area. It's a combination of desegregation with isolation. What happened with desegregation is that it resulted in people, you know, when you're moving up, meant moving out. So you moved out of the neighborhood when other parts of Columbus was desegregated. Isolation was when, in fact, 71 came through and the world was ruled by engineers at the time. And it literally isolated Mount Vernon Avenue, Lincoln, the King Lincoln area, we call it King Lincoln, and Long Street, isolated it from the rest of the community. When it used to be connected, it became disconnected. Those two things, really the two primary things that have resulted in some decline over the years.
Well, I know for sure what changed the neighborhood was the freeway coming through. It broke up the neighborhood. And also, I think, you know, I don't know if people think about it, but integration might have. Because we didn't go downtown that much because we didn't feel welcome downtown. We didn't, you know, we wanted to avoid any, you know, situations. So, but with the freeway coming and breaking up the neighborhood and being able to also go downtown and shop, or go downtown and go to the movies, I think that had a lot to do with the demise of the neighborhood.
The freeway stuck a knife in the heart of the Near East Side. The freeway went right through the black neighborhood. It cut off Long Street, it cut off Mount Vernon Avenue, it cut off Leonard Avenue, and cutting off that neighborhood from what seemed to me like the rest of the world was the beginning of a slow death of that neighborhood. And people started thinking, well, you know what, I'm making a little bit more money now, I've got a car, I can move over here. I no longer am restricted to living here, and if my neighborhood is not going to be the neighborhood I grew up in, then I'm not sure I want to live here anymore. So that was the beginning of the end.
After they built the 71 North Freeway, that split Mount Vernon Avenue, and I think might have been demise of some of the businesses, and it just wasn't as vibrant after that. And after the 60s, they could go other places and do other things, so they weren't concentrated so much in that area where they had to shop, because they could go other places and shop.
Our house was torn down for the freeway.
It broke up our neighborhood. The children all went to the same school. And then when we moved up, when we changed schools, when we changed neighborhoods, the children were going to different schools. I think my children and maybe two of their friends ended up in the same school.
Of course, in the late 60s, when the neighborhood, when the city of Columbus began to become integrated, what happened on the Near East Side and Mount Vernon Avenue is really no different than what happened everywhere in cities. And people began to move out. It was a migration out, and the aspirations that blacks had were the same as whites. They wanted the suburban home, they wanted the good job, they wanted the family, they wanted the safety, and they moved. The cycle of development that has taken place in and along Mount Vernon Avenue is what one that studies city planning would understand would happen. I don't see the decline in the retail along Mount Vernon as being just related to freeways and cutting the access off. It's the business. It's the fact that a person can make more if their businesses were located elsewhere. As Columbus became integrated, you didn't have to depend on only black clients to sell your groceries. A friend of mine used to own McDonald's. He would say, Ralph, I don't sell black hamburgers, I sell hamburgers. And then you go to a place where you can sell the most hamburgers. When I managed Mount Vernon Plaza, people would ask me if I thought that the neighborhood would ever turn around, and I said absolutely. The only question is, are the people that live there now going to be the benefactors of what is to come?